Pooh Shiesty didn't grow up choosing the streets. The streets chose him first. And once you understand who raised him, everything about his music suddenly makes terrifying sense. Before we even say Pooh Shiesty's name, you need to understand where he was born into. In South Memphis, survival isn't taught, it's passed down. Neighborhoods raise you before parents can. Loyalty comes before education. And a last name can decide your fate before you ever open your mouth. And the Williams name, that name already meant something in the streets, long before Pooh Shiesty ever touched a microphone, and the kind of weight it carried wasn't protection, it was pressure. Pressure most kids never live long enough to escape. Pooh Shiesty was raised inside an ecosystem tied directly to street power, not myths, not exaggerated rap stories, real people, real cases, real consequences. His father, Lantrell Williams Sr., was known in Memphis for moving strategically, blending the street economy with the music world long before it was trendy. Labels, studios, and connections weren't just about artistry. They were shields, cover, infrastructure. And growing up around that teaches a child one lesson early. Money moves quieter than violence, but both demand respect. And while many outsiders try to simplify it into gangster father, rapper son, the reality is much deeper, because Pooh Shiesty wasn't just watching the streets from the sidelines. He was growing up while federal cases, raids, and constant pressure surrounded his household. Imagine being a kid and learning early that silence isn't optional, it's survival. That lesson sticks, and it doesn't fade with fame, but the streets didn't raise him alone. The environment did. South Memphis has always been organized chaos. Dozens of crews, shifting loyalties, and a culture where reputation travels faster than news. Kids don't grow up dreaming about careers. They grow up learning who controls which block, who not to trust, and who's already at war. And by the time Pooh Shiesty was old enough to understand what was happening around him, he already understood one thing clearly. Weakness doesn't get forgiven here. As he got older, those lessons didn't disappear. They sharpened. School wasn't just school. It was neutral territory where rival neighborhoods collided. Arguments weren't verbal for long. Conflicts didn't stay online. And respect wasn't something you asked for. It was something you proved. This is where Pooh Shiesty and his circle began forming bonds that weren't about music yet. They were about loyalty. And those bonds would eventually become something much bigger. That's where Chopper Gang enters the story. Not as a rap group first, but as a tight-knit circle built on trust, shared pressure, and shared enemies. In Memphis, crews don't form for clout. They form because survival is easier when you're not alone. Chopper Gang was young, ambitious, and moving with a mindset shaped by everything Pooh Shiesty had grown up watching. They didn't see the streets as chaos. They saw them as a system you could navigate if you were disciplined enough. And here's the part most people miss. Chopper Gang wasn't built on reckless noise. It was built on observation, watching older generations make mistakes, watching who went to prison, watching who didn't come home. Pooh Shiesty didn't need to imagine consequences. He'd already seen them firsthand. So the moves became calculated, quiet, strategic, and every successful move only made the spotlight brighter, which brought new problems closer. Music didn't enter his life as an escape plan. It entered as an extension, another lane, another tool. In Memphis, rapping isn't therapy, it's documentation. When Pooh Shiesty started putting his life into lyrics, people felt it immediately because nothing sounded borrowed. The tension was real. The paranoia was real. The confidence came from lived experience, not studio imagination. And that authenticity pulled attention fast, maybe too fast, because attention changes street dynamics. When one person rises, everyone watches. Allies expect loyalty. Enemies smell opportunity. And suddenly, the same environment that shaped you starts testing whether you can survive success. For Pooh Shiesty, fame didn't erase his past. It amplified it. Every lyric got dissected. Every line sounded like a message to someone. And in Memphis, people take messages seriously. The tragedy is that while music was opening doors, the street code never loosened its grip. Loss didn't stop. Pressure didn't stop. And when Pooh Shiesty lost people close to him, it didn't soften him. It hardened him. Because in his world, grief doesn't get processed quietly. It gets remembered, filed away, and sometimes acted on later. This is the part where the cycle becomes clear. The same loyalty that protects you can trap you. The same reputation that keeps you safe can pull you back into conflicts you've outgrown. And for Pooh Shiesty, walking away wasn't as simple as changing zip codes. When you're raised inside something, you don't just leave, you carry it with you. That's why his legal trouble didn't shock people who truly understood his background. not because he was destined for prison, and not because he was incapable of change, but because unlearning survival instincts is far harder than learning them in the first place. When you grow up in an environment where hesitation can cost you your life, your brain is trained to react before it reasons. Every movement feels like a potential threat. Every confrontation feels like it could be the one that spirals out of control. So you move fast, you stay aggressive, and you never assume situations are harmless. Those instincts don't disappear just because money shows up or fame changes your address. In fact, success can make them worse. More eyes on you means more perceived threats, more people testing you, more situations where pride, paranoia, and reputation collide. And when you've spent your entire childhood learning that backing down equals weakness, walking away doesn't feel safe, it feels dangerous. The system doesn't make room for that context. Courts don't care where those reflexes came from. They don't measure childhood conditioning or survival psychology. They only see actions, timestamps, and evidence. To the law, intent matters more than instinct. And that's the brutal reality for people like Pooh Shiesty. The same instincts that once kept him alive are the very ones that ended up putting him behind bars. Today, Pooh Shiesty sits at a crossroads that very few ever survive cleanly. His story isn't just about crime, controversy, or even music. It's about inheritance, about the things that get passed down without conversation or consent. Mindsets, instincts, survival rules learned by watching, not being taught. When you're raised in an environment that trains you before you even understand what's happening, those lessons sink deep. They become automatic, permanent. South Memphis didn't just influence him, it shaped the way he sees the world, the way he reacts under pressure, and the way he defines respect and danger. And once those patterns are locked in, rewriting them isn't as simple as changing your surroundings. Fame doesn't erase conditioning. Money doesn't undo childhood programming. That's what makes his situation so complicated. Because at this crossroads, every path forward requires unlearning the very instincts that once kept him alive. And when the first chapters of your life are written by survival, rewriting the ending becomes the hardest fight of all. Because the truth is, the gang that raised Pooh Shiesty wasn't just Chopper Gang. It was South Memphis itself, a place where loyalty is currency, hesitation is weakness, and survival is taught long before hope ever has a chance to form. South Memphis didn't just influence him, it programmed him. It taught him how to move in silence, how to stand firm when tested, and how to carry a reputation like armor. Those lessons shaped his music, his mindset, and ultimately, his fate. Even when he left physically, South Memphis never left him. The streets don't release you just because you get famous. They don't forget your name because your zip code changes. Every move you make echoes back home. Every lyric, every headline, every absence gets noticed. In a place built on memory and respect, being remembered is both power and danger. So when Pooh Shiesty finally comes home, the real question isn't whether the streets will remember him. They already do. The real question is whether he can survive being remembered without being pulled back into everything that nearly destroyed him. Because escaping the streets is one thing, but escaping what they taught you, that's the hardest battle of all. And when Pooh Shiesty finally comes home, the question won't be whether the streets remember him. The real question is whether he can survive being remembered.